Hi, my name is Jericho Dellosa, and I'm reporting slide 29 to 33. Effects of Globalization. The effects of globalization can be felt locally and globally, touching the lives of individuals as well as the broader society in the following ways. Individuals. Here, a variety of international influences affects ordinary people. Globalization affects their access to goods, the prices they pay, and their ability to travel or even move to the other countries. Ang epekto ng globalisasyon ay mararamdaman locally and globally. Naapektuhan ang bawat individual. At pag sinabing broader societies is a social environment in which people of different types of lives. This environment influences the life of people sharing a same culture, tradition, religion, or territory. Slide 30. Effects of Globalization. Individuals' effects. Standard of living is the level, wealth, comfort, material goods, and necessities available to a certain socio-economic class in a certain geographic area. Quality of life is the degree to which a person enjoys the important possibilities of his or her life. In many instances, quality of life has improved for those who live in developing nations. For many developing nations, globalization has led to an improvement in which standard of living improved roads and transportation, improved healthcare, and improved education. Due to the expansion of corporation, however, globalization has had a negative effect on individuals who live in developed nations. This is due to the fact that corporations now have the option of establishing manufacturing operation in nations where manufacturing and product costs are less expensive. As a result, many manufacturing jobs leave developed nation and move to developing nation. Standard of living ay ang level ng kayamanan, kaginhawaan, material na kalakal gaya ng sapatos, kotse, damit at iba pa, at pangangailangan in a certain geographic area. Quality of life ay kung anong klaseng buhay mayroon ang isang tao. In many instances, ang klase ng buhay ay umuunlad para sa mga nakatira sa maunlad na nasyon. For developing nation, globalization has led to an improvement in standard of living through improved products, roads, transportation, improved healthcare, and improved education. Subalit, globalization ay mayroong negatibong epekto sa mga taong nakatira sa maunlad na nasyon. Ito ay ang katotohanan na ang korporasyon ay nagkakaroon ng pagpipilian kung sila ay magtatatag ng manufacturing operation sa isang maunlad na nasyon kung saan ang bili ng produkto ay mura. Ang resulta, many manufacturing jobs leave a developed nation and move to developing nation upang lumago ang kanilang negosyo. Slide 31. Effects of Globalization. Communities. This level encompasses the impact of globalization on local or regional organization, businesses, and economies. It affects who live in communities where they work, who they work for, their ability to move out of their community and into another country, among other things. Globalization also changes the way local culture develop with communities. Ang level na ito ay sumasaklaw sa impact ng globalisasyon sa lokal o region, organization, negosyo at ekonomiya. Naapektuhan nito ang mga tao na nakatira sa isang komunidad kung saan sila nagtatrabaho, ang abilidad nilang gumalaw sa kanilang komunidad at sa labas ng bansa. Globalisasyon ay binabago ang pamamaraan ng lokal na pag-unlad ng kultura sa isang komunidad. Slide 32. Effects of Globalization. Institution. Multinational corporations, national governments, and other organizations such as colleges and universities are all affected by their country's approach to an acceptance of globalization. Globalization affects the ability of companies to grow and expand. University ability to diversify and grow its student body and a government's ability to pursue specific economic policies. Ang globalisasyon ay naaapektuhan ang abilidad ng kumpanya na lumago at lumaki. Ang universidad ay ang abilidad na pag-iba-ibahin ang pag-unlad ng katawan ng isang estudyante, at ang gobyerno ay ang abilidad na ituloy ang tiyak na polisiya. Slide 33. While the effects of globalization can be observed, analyzing the net impact is more complex. Proponents often see specific results as positive, and critics of globalization view the same result as negative. A relationship that benefits one entity may damage another, and whether globalization benefits the world at large remain a point of contention. Pag sinabing net impact is the sum of companies' positive and negative impact in environment, health, society, and knowledge.
Good day, sir, and to my fellow classmates. For today, I will discuss about ethical issues and globalization. First, it is about jobs. Jobs. One of the main issues concerning the globalization of the planet is that it has put many jobs in first world countries in jeopardy. Mind workers such as engineers, lawyers, and doctors generally have the ability to find jobs and demand high prices for their work in first world countries. Laborers and manual workers, however, are experiencing a loss of position in first world countries as their services can be outsourced much more cheaply to workers in third world countries. In this topic, it is all about job. Kumbaga, sa trabaho, meron syempreng may mas mataas, merong mababa. Kumbaga, kung sino yung mga may natapusan na mataas, like tapos ngayon ng engineer, lawyer, doctors, that example sa topic, sila yung mga maraming opportunity kahit saan or kung anong tinapusan nila na may trabaho, unlike sa mga hindi nakapagtapos or nakapagtapos naman hindi 4 na taon, like 2 years graduate lang ganun. Medyo mas lamang talaga, may sabihin natin medyo mas angat talaga yung mga may tinapusan sa na 4 na taon. Yun ang pagkakaintindi ko sa topic na ito. Pangalawa, brain drain. The brain drain effect of globalization is another ethical issue. It refers to talented or educated people in third world countries who leave their countries of origin for better opportunities in first world countries. This leaves third world countries lacking homegrown, educated professionals such as doctors and engineers. Ito naman sa brain drain, kumbaga dito nila may mga kumbaga mga tao dito may mga trabaho na sila na hinahanap nila kung saan mas kikita sila ng malaki, like malaki ang sahod sa bansang to, sa lugar na to. Kumbaga like dito sa Pilipinas mas mataas ang sahod sa ibang bansa ng mga nurses, unlike dito sa Pilipinas. That is example of brain drain na sa globalization. Kumbaga hinahanap nila yung mas, kumbaga may mga taong maraming pangailangan, kumbaga dun nila hinahanap yung mga mataas yung sahod sa ibang bansa para lang ma solusyonan yung kahirapan. Isa yun sa mga nagiging dahilan siguro kaya sila naghahanap ng ibang trabaho dun sa ibang bansa. Pangatlo, natural resources. According to the State of the World 2006 report, the world's ecological capacity is simply insufficient to satisfy the ambitions of China, India, Japan, Europe, and the United States, as well as the aspirations of the rest of the world in a sustainable way. Tropical rains, forests around the world, predominantly in Brazil, Indonesia, and Papua New Guinea, are being filled for fuel and cattle grazing pastures. Apart from wildlife concerns, this reduction in rainforest will have a huge effect on oxygen levels for the entire planet. Ito naman na sa natural resources, isa rin siya sa nagiging issue sa globalization. Kasi lalo na sa panahon ngayon, bago-bagong panahon, nakakaranas tayo ng climate change. Isa to sa natural resources. Kumbaga, pwede itong maging malaking problema, like sa pagbabago ng panahon, nagkakaroon ng iba't ibang sakit, nakaka-imbento ng iba-ibang sakit. Kumbaga maraming nagkakasakit ng tao. Isa pa itong mga forest fire, gaya sa nangyari sa ibang bansa ng mga nakaraan lang. Naapektuhan din ito yung hindi lamang yung tao, pati na rin yung mga hayop na nakatira sa gubat. Isa rin yun sa kaya nagiging problema, like yung pagkakaroon ng mga disaster like flood. Nagkakakos ng flood dahil sa patuloy na pagputol nila ng mga kahoy. Maraming mga tao ang inaabuso yung kagubatan, kaya kapag yung kagubatan naman yung nawala, malaking problema rin to para sa atin. Kaya isa siguro to kaya nalagay ito sa issue ng globalization. Ang apat, health. Easier means of transportation can easily lead to the spread of highly infectious diseases. This is, however, no modern phenomena. In the 14th century, the Black Death spread from Asia to Europe, wiping out approximately 50% of Europe's population. When Europe first colonized the Americas, diseases such as smallpox were responsible for around 90% of Native Americans who died during that time. Modern diseases such as HIV/AIDS and swine flu, however, have been spread through modern means of transport such as travel. Ito naman isa to sa naging issue ng globalization na health. Kasi maraming mga sakit na lumalaganap, lalo na sa ngayon. Dumagdag pa tong COVID-19 na mas lalong nagpahirap at nagpabigat sa kalagayan ng mga tao. Isa to sa nagiging problema din na health. Kasi sa patuloy na pagkakaroon ng mga iba't ibang sakit, naapektuhan nito yung mga tao. Lalong-lalo na nga, halimbawa itong pandemya, naapektuhan nito yung trabaho ng mga tao. Kumbaga may mga business na nagsisara dahil sa pandemya. May mga taong nawalan ng trabaho at nagiging cause na mas lalong naghihirap yung mga tao, lalo na sa panahon ngayon. At isa pa kaya naging issue to, isa to sa hanggang ngayon sinusolusyonan pa rin ng ating ng gobyerno na matapos na lahat itong problema sa health, like itong COVID-19 nga, makaahon na lahat ng tao. At lastly, number 5, financial. Due to an increasingly globalized world, there is a growing market and financial interdependency between nations. The U.S. subprime mortgage collapse, for example, led to an almost worldwide depression, especially affecting Europe. Ito naman yung mga about naman to sa mga pera, pondo, kumbaga ng halimbawa pondo ng gobyerno sa paglutas nila sa mga problema sa bansa, like kahirapan, pandemic, ito nga na lumalaganap ngayon na COVID-19, isa pa patuloy na pagpapa pagpapalaki ng mga gusali at pagkakaroon ng pagbabago sa mga bansa, like pagtatayo nga ng mga establishments para sa mga tao na magtatrabaho, at isa pa yun sa nagiging problema na paano matugunan yung mga bagay na yun kung kulang tayo ng financial. Isa yun kaya siguro naging issue dito sa globalization. Yun lamang po, and thank you sa pakikinig.
Good day, everyone. My name is Dollente, and I am reporting the dilemmas of globalization, including labor standard, environmental standard, and the problem of pollution havens. First, labor standard. Child labor is an especially critical issue in such debates. Child labor po is and often defined as work that deprives children of their childhood, their potentials, and their dignity, and that is harmful to physical and mental development. It refers works that is mentally, physically, socially, or morally dangerous and harmful to the children. Managers from a Western multinational would not even think about hiring children in their home country, since it would be both illegal and offensive to the moral sense of the community. In some emerging economies, however, child labor is common and even essential for the subsistence of the child. Thus, this makes hiring children morally acceptable. Sabi dito, may mga bansang mahigpit sa kanilang labor standard at hindi nila pinapayagan na magkaroon ng child labor. But in some emerging economies, child labor is very dominant, lalong-lalo na sa mga bansang di maunlad ang ekonomiya at papaunlad pa lang ang ekonomiya. Kaya nagkakaroon ng child labor dahil sa kahirapan, nagagawa ng mga kabataang makipagsapalaran upang magkaroon ng panggastos sa kanilang pamilya. Other dilemmas involve difference in workers' safety standards. The SS United States was one of the most luxurious cruise ships of the 1950s. In the 1990s, the company decided to have it refurbished, which required removing asbestos from the vessels. Refurbish, it means pagsasaayos, and asbestos is the chemical from the vessels that can cause harmful to living organisms. Conducting the task under U.S. strict worker safety norms and had a cost of $100 million. The company decides to outsource the job in Turkey, where the cost was only $2 million. Since finally the Turkish authorities would not allow it for fear the workers would get cancer. The ship was towed to the Russian port of Sebastopol, where asbestos were removed for even less, thanks to even lower standard in worker safety. In this situation, the moral dilemma is the difference in worker safety standard. May mga bansa kasing mas pinapahalagan pa nila ang mas kumita kaysa sa kanilang mga labor workers sa kalusugan ng mga ito. But mostly of the countries was very strict to their worker safety. Sila yung mga company na may mataas pagdating sa labor standard. Environmental standard. Technological progress trigger exponential growth in human ability to alert that environment. While this has countless benefits, it also raises a number of dilemmas about the use of natural sources, societies with poor environmental regulation. Ito nga, dahil sa pagkakaroon ng technological advancement, ang our environment is more on danger, and because of population are growing, our natural resources will become overused. Lalong-lalo na sa mga bansang mabababa ang kalidad ng pagkakaroon ng rules sa kanilang environment. Kaya nagkakaroon ng overuse sa environment dahil sa pagkakaroon ng mahinang environmental regulations. Example dito yung Texaco. Texaco was accused of making irreversible damage to the Ecuador rainforest because of the use of low standard in the 1970s and 1980s. A similar case happened in southern Argentina's shale gas field of Vaca Muerta. Protests have arisen against the activities of oil companies YPF and Chevron for using allegedly low environmental standard in fracking. Texaco po is an American oil brand of Chevron Corporation or a company under American. Texaco is the company have a low standard of workers in this company do their business in the weak or lower environmental regulations. Sa mga bansa po na may weak at low sa environmental regulations. Like a situation from the Ecuador community. Texaco was overused the environmental resources to get more money, but Texaco accused of making irreversible damage in the Ecuador rainforest because of use of lowering standards. In the late 1990s, the Finnish company Botnia planned the construction of pulp mill with the city of Fray Bentas, Uruguay, on the shores of the Uruguay rivers near the border with Argentina. The project was heavily resisted by environment advocacy group Botnia, who was accused of making extra profit by following environmental standard than in the home country. Another frequent international environmental dilemma is related to toxic waste. It is estimated that a considerable part of China's arable land is polluted with lead, zinc, and other heavy metals exported from developed economies. Old computers that are discarded in the some United States usually end up in China, where the cost of disposal is 90% lower. Some emerging economies have sought to attract foreign direct investment by lowering environmental standards in a phenomenon known as race to the bottom, and the creation of countries that works as pollution havens. Arable land means a land that can be used for growing crops, suitable for farming, suited to the flow and for tillage. And race to the bottom po is means a situation characterized by a progressive lowering or deteriorations of standards, especially in a business context. As a result of the pressure of competition, yun. So we discussed about the problem of pollution havens. Pollution havens theory possessed that foreign investors from industrial countries are attracted to weak environmental regulation in developing countries. This principle says that a company would want to locate in a country with the lowest environmental standard. Pollution havens, some of rich countries or people take an advantage to some developing countries or lower and mostly to non-wealthy country. Non-wealthy country having a lower standard or a weak environmental regulations. Mas tinitake advantage ng mga rich country or rich people ang pagkakaroon ng weak environmental regulations ng isang bansa para mas kumita ng malaking pera habang maliit ang kanilang binabayaran or inire-release na pera. Tinitake advantage ito ng mga negosyante or mayamang bansa na magtayo ng business sa lugar na ito dahil sa pagkakaroon nila ng weak environmental regulations. Mas kumikita sila ng mas malaking pera. Rich countries usually have strict environmental regulation and poor countries do not. Environmentally hazardous activities may be moved to poor countries. Example nito yung sa Texaco, Southern Argentina, and Botnia. Dahil sa kagustuhan nilang kumita ng pera, hindi nila isinasalang-alang ang kaligtasan ng environment. At sila yung company na merong lower labor standard at ginagawa nila yung business nila sa mga country or lugar na may low or weak environmental regulations. Two questions. Whether pollution havens are really important factor. Number two, whether pollution havens deserve to be a subject of international negotiations. Opinion. We think that is the pollution havens, the higher environmental standards should be imposed and the government should interfere with the pollution havens. Thought it earned interest, but at the same time, serious damage to the environment is costless. The impact of environmental pollutions is a long time and we cannot lose the greater one. This is the end of my report, and the next discussion will be discussed by Mark Vincent Lobo. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. I will discuss the moral dilemmas of globalization. Human rights. Corporations sometimes face dilemmas linked to operation in countries with the government accused of violating human rights. Ang isang bansa o korporasyon ay madalas humaharap sa ganitong sitwasyon dahil ang government o company ay hindi nagbibigay ng pangangailangan ng bawat tao o kaya wala silang salitang human right. A high-profile case IBM scandal of doing business with the Nazis in 1930s and 1940s. IBM provided her Hollerith punch card to the Third Reich, which were used in operational management of extermination camp. In the 1970s, Polaroid stopped selling equipment to the government in apartheid South Africa when it learned that cameras were used to make IDs for surveillance and dissidents. In 1993, Levi Strauss & Co. canceled contracts in China due to the systematic violation of human rights perpetrated by government. In 1970s ay pinagbawal ang pagbebenta ng isang uri ng kamera sa apartheid South Africa dahil na pagtanto nila na ang kamerang yon is to make IDs of the surveillance of dissident. But in 1993, Levi Strauss & Co. kinansila ang kontratang iyon sa China dahil sa sistema ng human rights doon. More recently, Google accepted the Chinese government request to censor keywords like Tiananmen Square and Dalai Lama in its search engine. The CEO Eric Schmidt state, "I think it's arrogant to enter a country where we are starting our operation and tell the country how to govern itself." Kailan lamang tiranggap ng Google ang alok ng Chinese government na gumamit ng keywords for in its search engine. Moral dilemmas, globalization, cultural diversity. Principle of international law hold corporation ought to respect the customs and culture of communities where they operate. Tradition values can be lost to the homogenizing trends introduced by globally integrated production process and product promotion. Some amount of change is inevitable, and certain local practice may not deserve protection if they violate important minimum global norms. However, they should norm. They should. When should the norm be respected because of cultural diversity consideration, and when should it be ignored because it violates of global minimum? Cultural diversity is to having different culture respect each other culture differences. Respect each other differences. A pragmatic case occurs with a paradigmatic case occurs with gender equality. It is frequent that anti-discrimination standard clash with tradition, customs and religious practice. Western corporation, which typically promote gender equality at home, often find themselves operating in societies intolerant against women in Saudi Arabia. For example, gender separation is almost total, and women are forbidden by law to practice many professions. According to the statement, cultural diversity is the existence of different culture groups in the society. So ayon sa aking binasa, mayroong contradiction o clash na mangyayari between the anti-discrimination standard, which is in favor with gender equality, and the tradition, customs o paniniwala ng mga tao promoting gender equality in some parts of Western countries aims to protect the rights of women. Unlike in Saudi Arabia, women are not allowed to take many professions at once. They would be against the law. While companies usually justify discriminatory practice out of respect for local tradition, those arguments can be problematic, as in Saudi Arabia today. South Africa maintained a system where a broad segment of society was discriminated against in all walks of life under the authority of men without any fear of being considered responsible for their actions. The only difference was that the victim in South Africa were black, in Saudi Arabia are women. This statement emphasized that victims of discrimination can be identified to racism and gender. In cultural case, softer ways of discrimination exist. While Mexico does not have formal restriction against women, in the labor market, a widespread macho culture often operates as a glass ceiling. Corporation face an unwritten rule that holds that women should not be in charge of a male team, using a gender equality standard of the home country, not considering gender as relevant of defining team leadership, could be costly for the company as employees may not perceive a female boss as a legitimate authority. However, respecting local tradition and denying promotion to a talented executive solely because of gender considerations would seen a violation of the principle of equal opportunity. In a workplace in Mexico, gender inequality still exists. When are not allowed, women were not allowed to lead a male team. Team leadership that consider gender orientation could be costly. However, they still respect local tradition and still consider gender as the basis of promotion. Either it violates the principle of equal opportunity. Corruption. Corruption is a concept of agglomerates practice ranging from multi-million-dollar payment to high government official to a few dollars bribe to a low-level bureaucrat. It is estimated that over $1 trillion are paid in bribes annually, which squanders public resources and deprives millions of food, education, and other government services to which they are entitled. Corporation is a form of dishonest behavior by those in position of power. It involves money or payments, and it's called bribery. It squanders or wastes public resources for self-advantage and deprives the needs of people who are paying taxes. Bribery in foreign operations was not always considered morally wrong. Some even saw it as a normal operating expense when doing business in emerging communities. German corporate law, while severely punishing bribery at home, consider foreign bribes as tax deductible expense. Attitudes toward bribery changed in the late 1970s after the U.S. Congress passed the Foreign Corrupt Practice Act, which outlawed paying bribes abroad for American companies. Unfortunately, in foreign countries bribery was not considered to be a morally wrong act. Some normalized the act of bribery even in business and economic field. However, there are still countries or places which give punishment to those who are engaged in doing bribery at home.